online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot to talk about today, a lot going on in, around, throughout the borderland here. Some of the more interesting ones, top of my mind anyway, are, of course, the ongoing international situations that are coming out of there, some national currents going on with that, with some potential visits over to Europe coming up. Not as much affecting us here in the borderland, but of course the downstream of that. Our interview on that today, as we have Matt Olson chiming in over there on the Facebook page already, going to be talking about what is going on with those gas prices, how this international stuff going on affects it, not even just from the conflict but beyond, but also just what was going on even before that, because as has been very correctly pointed out by commentators and even callers and participants in the show here, there's a lot more to it than just, well, this current war in Ukraine. So we'll get into that with Jack Kerfoot, who has been in the oil and gas industry and dealing with energy policies for, well, his whole career. Talking about his qualifications, what he has to say about it, and the analysis that comes along with that. So we'll be talking about that here today, but a couple of other things going on a little bit closer to home anyway. Do have an interesting proposal, or action, I guess, is technically the right way to put it, coming out of City Council today, including getting more body cams, or cross-force, I guess, body cams for the El Paso Police Department. Actually, ironically enough, had almost a run-in. I could have been on TV, y'all, when one of the local news stations happened to be coming out of Walgreens. We're doing those kind of interviews, doing about, okay, what does this mean? You know, how do people feel about it? Cameraman unfortunately recognized me. I was going to fess up to the fact that I host this show anyway, but I was going to see how far I could get anyway. Said, okay, you tell me if you actually want my interview on this, and they politely declined after that point here. Could have been on TV, but no hard feelings, because if you do want to check out what's going on with that over with our news partners over at KFOX 14, have the story up there right now. El Paso City Council approved $6 million in funding for body-worn cameras. Now, I was not in this discussion today. Obviously, we do this show here, and going to City Council is a full day affair if you're really trying to get the best stuff out of it. I've done that more than a couple of times in my career, and yeah, that's your day. That's all you're doing that day. So got to trust them to get us over here. They're going to cover the cost for digital video recording systems, over 700 body-worn cameras, and 410 mobile video recorders for the El Paso Police Department. The most recent time I did deal with this in the borderland was when the LCPD, Las Cruces Police Department, implemented their system here. It was an interesting camera system that they were going to be using, or actually did end up implementing using, that could be clipped on either directly onto, or even on like a lapel cam, or even on the side of glasses that were equipped to receive it. And that had started up there. The requirements to then store and deal with it on the back end is where the real problematic part of it is, or even just how and when they actually start recording. Remember talking with actually the sheriff years ago about their plan for a potential implementation, and how and when it would be recording was of a concern to him, because having a recording while idling, besides kind of a waste, I guess, of storage resources, if there was non-active enforcement business going on, was a part of the concern. They're curious to see if that has changed in the interim here. This is one of the last times I mentioned it here to him. Last time I got the chance to talk with the sheriff, actually, for that matter, now that I think about it. So what they're looking at, the city will actually be getting a state grant of $497,000 to go along with this, going to funding and a city match program with it as well. So it'll be an interesting experiment here. I'm actually, frankly, mildly surprised that we didn't already have something like that. I tend to find myself in favor of the idea of body cameras, because in most of the circumstances it's been shown, sure, accountability is a good thing, an important thing to make sure that what is going on can be supported and backed up. But for most of the things that I've seen, it tends to actually, well, supports police officers more than anything, cuts down on frivolous claims of whatever may be done against them, because, well, there's immediate evidence to back it up here. And video evidence is probably the one that is the most, not exactly incontrovertible, but I mean, transparency is definitely something I've been a long time in favor of, even if it ends up going against me sometimes. There was at one point where when they still had the street cams, the ones that were on the red light cameras. That was not me driving. At least I'm 90% sure it wasn't me driving, but we got one of those notifications that you have red light camera violation, and thought, oh, no, there's no way. There's no possible way. Went to review the footage, and yep, the vehicle that was registered to me just California stop would be generous to describe it here, which is why I am going to firmly say that it was not me driving there at that point, but you couldn't actually see the driver. So that's my line, and I'm sticking to it. But it made me pretty clearly and pretty quickly think, well, I'm just going to deal with that ticket then, because, well, the video supported it here. And for the most part, I mean, there's the most time that body cameras come up outside of kind of general day-to-day enforcement kind of actions is, of course, during those high-profile cases in which I guess I do find it always more than a mite suspicious whenever there is a delay in the releasing of the body camera footage here, or a not immediate release of it, which is why, if anything, and this would probably have to be a state level thing when it comes to the release of the maintenance of body camera information. And because, I mean, you do end up getting some of the situations where it's the camera's malfunctioned or the camera was off. It just, those perfect times sometimes. So there does need to be further accountability, I guess would be the right way to say it, to go along with it. But both the way that it can add accountability to the public and also to the members of the public making potentially false reports or, looking for trouble kind of thing. RJ says, good luck beating those, constitutional or not. I mean, yeah, if you're talking about the red light cameras, those, of course, no longer constitutional in Texas. I mean, if I'm thinking of the correct level, not legal anyway, but I do want to say that there were Texas constitutional implications that saw, well, the removal of those statewide, because I guarantee you that wasn't a local thing being passed here. So whether it was totally constitutional or not in Texas as an action to change the legality of them, I actually have to think back on that. I'll have to look that back up. That was my inkling at the time, but haven't really reviewed that as well. But I mean, there's a lot going on here. John Browston on that international aspect of it. If Red China invaded the U.S. and the president required all men 18 to 60 to stay and fight for America, according to recent polls, almost all Democratic men would help for the Canadian and Mexican borders. Many made that because Beto bought all their weapons. The way I've seen it was about 35% total of the U.S. population said thanks, but no thanks, that they would flee instead of staying here, which I guess I'm disappointed, but not entirely surprised that it's that high, and maybe even pleasantly surprised it's not that much higher, because, I mean, you got to remember, except for those, I mean, service members and their families have borne a brunt of the U.S. activities in terms of military actions outside of the continental United States for literal generations at this point. I mean, sure, Vietnam War, we saw a wider swath, but ever since the end of the general draft and that kind of a thing, we've had an all-volunteer force, and the propensity, I don't know the exact stat off the top of my head, but it is multiple times higher than the average public for a member of an already military service-involved family to continue serving. So we have essentially had, for lack of a better term, a class of military service in this country for a couple of generations now. And the longer that goes on, the longer that comes more ingrained and harder to kind of, at the very least, shake the conception of, and just more like, oh no, that's only what those people do kind of thing, which is totally, totally wrong in my mind. But think about it, in the, continental United States hasn't been any active combatants. I mean, you want to really go back to like, War of 1812 style, but more specifically, the last actual physical military attack, terrorism notwithstanding, you have to go back to around World War II, when there was either, you want to talk about the Aleutian Islands, or technically some saboteur attempts that were happening off the coast by German and Japanese subs. So there has not been a whole lot of demand or impact domestically when it comes to combat or even really the threat of it. Again, terrorism, and let's lump in, nuclear attacks and the drills notwithstanding, the vast majority of Americans have just not had to grapple with that subject. So, again, mixed emotions about it. But, well, let's just knock on wood that we have leaders that will hopefully, or leaders, not the phrase I like to use here, elected officials that will end up not getting us closer to that, because if the Ukrainian and the footage coming out of it conflict is any example, even if it's it was going on for less than a month now, and the devastation that has already been wrought, terrible to behold. So let that be a lesson to anyone who is getting their jimmies rustled and thinking that, yeah, let's burn it all down. Not going to go as well as you think you are. Guaranteed. Anyway, a little bit of a tangent there, but we're going to come back after this break and talk more about some of those more domestic issues, including gas prices. Going to be talking with Jack Kerfoot, who is an expert in these fields and having done his own study on it and written a book about domestic energy supplies and what that means. So kind of looking at what the current situation is, what is it going to mean going forward, and what you and I can expect, and even longer-term trends. So back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay tuned. More coming up after this break. Don't go anywhere. Even if you're not too on board with travel plans going on around here, I've been entertaining it a little bit more myself here, but recent international events may have led me to believe that staying at home might be better. But that doesn't mean, for me and my family anyway, that we are not going to be experiencing flavors from around the world, because I've discovered a great local source of quality flavored olive oils and balsamic vinegars, which really helps spice up our cooking. Essential Flavors, your local source for over 40 varieties. Again, they've got extra virgin olive oil, flavored olive oils, balsamic vinegars, a whole lot of different options that come along with it here. What I got right in front of me right now, their dark balsamic vinegar, Mediterranean honey, fig, and pistachio blend. It goes great on, well, anything you might try balsamic vinegar on, but even some things you might not. Ice cream, believe it or not. Get some nice quality vanilla ice cream. Drizzle this on it, and the tastes will really take you around the world here. Of course, their olive oils are imported from Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain, and all of their balsamic vinegars straight from the Modena province of Italy, as is required for it to be that balsamic vinegar. But you can find their enhanced flavors to sample over those 40 flavors by going to your favorite farmers markets and outdoor events. Plus, visit them online at enhancedflavors.com. Again, enhancedflavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a crash reported Gateway East at the exit ramp to Giles. That earlier accident, I-10 westbound near Cotton, has still got the left lane blocked from that earlier 3-vehicle crash. There's a minor backup to Piedras. Injury accident, still working it at Dyer and Diana Drive. And police and medical on the scene of a new crash at Lee Trevino, northbound at Rojas Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better. With 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles, with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Excludes factory rebate and dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice. Be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. John Browson, RJ, Matt Olson, some of the ones tuning in and chiming in over there, more than welcome to do so throughout the program. One of the better ways you can, because while we don't have the phone lines open yet, the conversation takes on its own tenor over online, particularly over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. That's where the Skeptic Squad lives for the most part, even if a little bit diversification is happening, more or less necessarily. We'll be there and be having that conversation and getting into it as well. We need to. We just got to be getting into this kind of stuff here. So if we want to chime in over there, more than welcome to. Interview right now. Got the chance to delve a little bit further into the whole oil, gas, energy sector situation as a whole that we've been discussing here. Have been not trying to look too hard at the pumps around here. It still seems to be hovering around that between 410, 420 level, even as gas prices are doing loop-de-loops, for lack of a better term here. That instability probably going to continue here with some of the things we're going to get into here with our interview today, because, well, there's just more to be told than just even the current situation. We were seeing a lead up to it before even the Russian invasion. But beyond that, we've seen these gas prices previously, and there's some administration over administration talk to be done. So really delving into it and what factors you might want to consider for the future here. Talking with him, here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Jack Kerfoot, scientist, energy expert, and author of the book Fueling America: An Insider's Journey. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Andrew, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So there is a lot to talk about when it comes to energy situations lately. I mean, there's been a lot of overnight experts who have been putting out their thoughts and opinions on how things are working here, but you actually have a lot of study and experience here. What would you say, or briefly describe, what is your level of experience and expertise when it comes to, the energy sector?
Well, I graduated from University of Oklahoma in 1976 when the United States was faced with a different type of energy crisis. Well, actually similar to what we have today. There were oil embargoes, so there was a shortage. That took me around the world: Denver, Midland, Texas, Oklahoma, and then overseas, Indonesia, Malaysia, searching for oil and gas around the world. And that helped me understand the dynamics. I've worked for majors and independents, a wide range of scenarios of operations. I've been involved with heads of state, ministers, sheiks and potentates, trying to address energy issues and crises around the world. And I would characterize energy as frequently discussed, but very poorly understood, even by governments such as the United States.
I think a lot of people's standpoint comes from not so much a studied example, but what they see as the end user, what they're paying at the gas pump here. And generally, it kind of also gets conflated with the idea that if any governmental organization, the administration we've talked about a lot lately, is doing well, gas prices go down. And if they're doing bad, gas prices go up. But even with my not having nearly as much knowledge and experience you are, I am positive that is not the whole story. And I'm sure that's your experience as well.
Absolutely. I think we have to realize the paradigm is that gas prices, by many people, look at are going up because of those people. Those people could be big oil companies like ExxonMobil, British Petroleum, or Shell, OPEC, or foreign governments such as Russia, Iran, or even Venezuela. But the reality is oil is not a renewable resource, and the world is consuming oil at a rate faster than it can find it. The world is consuming about 34 billion barrels of oil a year and has been replacing over the last 20 years about 3 to 4% of that. So what we're seeing is that oil price volatility is associated with the growing demand coupled with limited supply, which may be interrupted by many reasons. wars, embargoes, or even weather. When we've had hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, we've seen oil price spikes from that standpoint. Fuel prices like gasoline or diesel are impacted by state taxes, which can be very significant in the West Coast, but less, let's say, in Texas. Also, things such as increasing costs to find new oil reserves. We have to realize moving into the deep water in the Gulf of Mexico and around the world, these wells will cost $100 million. And the success rate on exploration wells is maybe 25, 30%. Now, we also see, of course, fracking, but that's very expensive, but limited resources. So the well may come on, let's say, at 2,000 barrels a day, but it will drop in production rates by 50% a year. So instead of having a 15 or 20-year life of a conventional well, fracked wells only have 3, 4, or 5-year types of economics, because depending on the price, of course. And then the other factor is looking at very expensive forms of oil, which is the tar sands in Canada. Literally, they have to be mined, just like mining coal or mining a mineral, and then has to be steamed. And all of that's very expensive. The economics on shale oil is about $60 a barrel to break even. So with all of those factors combined, what we're seeing is the price to find and produce hydrocarbons has been going up. Now, the United States in 2021 produced about 9 million barrels of oil a day, which is the third largest volume of oil in the world. The leaders are Russia at about 10.6 and Saudi Arabia at 10. However, the U.S. consumes about 19.8 million barrels a day. Fundamentally, that's the problem that we have, is our demand is so much significantly higher than anyone else. We lead the world in oil consumption, followed by China at 11 and then India at 4.5. So we consume oil at a much greater rate than any other country in the world. And also, it's not just oil for fuel and gasoline. It's obviously for airlines, but also a wide range of things, from cell phones, from clothes like spandex, acrylics, polyesters, toothbrushes, car interiors, nail polish, perfume, shampoos, furniture, and medicines. So one of the key factors is the discussion is about transportation electrification. And if we can move to electric vehicles and away from gasoline as fuel, we can cut our consumption of oil in the United States just for electric cars by 40%. So those are some of the things that governments and countries, not only in the United States, but around the world, that are looking at. The demand for oil is going to be there. But the question is, we're spending so much on fuel when we could be spending other more economic ways, more conservation ways, better conservation ways on other sources of power.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Jack Kerfoot, scientist, energy expert, and author of the book Fueling America: An Insider's Journey. You want to find out more about him, the work he's done, his expertise in this at jackkerfoot.com. That's JackKerfoot.com. So we touched a lot of subjects right there and a lot to get into. But so kind of bring it home for our average listener there at home. When we're looking at the situation we're in now, again, a lot has been said about the factors leading into it. Russia and the whole, sanctions situation has gotten quite a lot of emphasis. But of course, you look at the recent trends that this increase had been going on since before that. Some have been making references to, what it was on election day, that kind of a thing. So how do we end up where we are right now? I mean, I kind of see Russia and that whole situation as the cherry on top, but the rest of the sundae has been getting built kind of for a minute now.
We have to realize COVID played a part of this as well. What happened with COVID is the amount of transportation and demand for fuels dropped dramatically with COVID. And I think people understand that. What we didn't perhaps think about is that meant the demand in the refineries dropped. So the refineries scale back their operation based on demand, because if they produce gasoline and diesel, they have to store it. And the storage capabilities across the United States were nearly at 100% capacity. Mm-hmm. So the real issue is, what do we do? So they were scaling back their capacity. But as COVID cases started to drop and we started to scale back up our businesses, what we started to see then is the refineries having to build back up again their capabilities. And also the transportation, whether it's by pipelines for the oil or by truck or by marine vessel. So all is scaling this up created shortfalls or bottlenecks in the distribution system of fuels, whether it's gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel, or marine fuels, or for ships. So all of that created sort of local shortages as well. And this is not the only time that this has happened before. I remember in 2006 when I was in Malaysia, I received a call from a friend of mine at the National Oil Company of Malaysia, and he was talking about the fact that there was a shortage of liquefied natural gas, and they had a tanker of liquefied natural gas that was on its way to a country. But then they got a call from another country that was short, and so they got into a bidding war between the two countries for this tanker of LNG. So by the time they finished, the price of the LNG sold for the equivalent of about $160 a barrel, when the actual price of oil at that time was right around 95, 96. But again, local supplies drove up that demand. So it's a case that we're seeing here, but you experience it throughout the world.
So then just, again, to bring it even further home, when we're looking at, the prices that we're looking at right now, and there's been some fantastical projections of oil even going up to $200 a barrel. That would be its own situation here. But in the near term, what do you expect to happen? And if there was, there's been a lot of, pronouncements from elected officials about needing to address this and deal with it. Are there any real good short-term solutions, or are we just kind of in for it on the ride at this point?
Well, I think what we have to realize that we've seen that when you place an embargo on a country that can impact the fuel by, let's say, 5 or 10%, prices go up. When Iraq invaded Kuwait many, many years ago, the United Nations put an embargo on Iraqi oil. Well, that created about a $20 or $30 surge in price because of 5 million barrels a day that Iraq was producing was significant enough to create shortages throughout the U.S. So I think what we're going to see is we will see reactivation of activities in the Permian Basin and other parts of the United States for onshore oil and gas production. But we have to realize it's not the big oil companies that are doing it. It's in American independents. It's the companies that may have 300 or 400 employees or 50 or 60 employees. They're the ones that really drive the oil and gas industry. That's one thing that's very unique about the United States, and the fact that we have so many independent oil and gas operators in our country. In many countries, or in most countries, the oil and gas rights are actually owned by the federal government. Now here, the majority is private sector. So there's a huge demand, literally hundreds of oil and gas geologists, geophysicists, reservoir engineers that are working around the world to maximize the extraction safely and cost effectively of oil for our country.
Again, guest right now, Jack Kerfoot, scientist, energy expert, and author of the book, Fueling American Insider's Journey. We're going to keep talking with him about this, but we got to take that break right now. So, Jack, stick around. We're going to be back right after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with SK Fox 14 News Update. Mexico has deported the alleged leader of a bloodthirsty gang of border hitmen 1 day after his arrest caused retaliatory shooting and burning that closed some U.S. border crossings. A Mexican official who's not authorized to be quoted by name said Juan Gerardo Trevino had been handed over to U.S. officials in a controlled deportation, suggesting Trevino holds dual U.S. citizenship, which is not uncommon along the border. Had he only Mexican citizenship, he would have been subject to a lengthy extradition process. After his arrest Sunday, members of his gang shot up the border city of Nuevo Laredo. And Saturday Night Live starring comedian Pete Davidson is the latest celebrity who's scheduled to fly to the edge of space. He's scheduled to launch next Wednesday, March 23rd, from billionaire Jeff Bezos' spaceport on the Corn Ranch in the West Texas desert, located about 100 miles east of here. Some people may know Davidson better as Kim Kardashian's current boyfriend. I'm Erica Castillo with SK Fox 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Trans Mountain, look for a stalled tractor-trailer rig off right that's blocking the right shoulder. Gateway Boulevard eastbound at the exit ramp to Giles, an accident reported there. I-10 westbound at Reynolds, a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. I-10 westbound near Cott, earlier accident is in the clearing stages, no backup there. And I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, it's slow and go with about 5-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
They expect calmer conditions this evening with another pattern change by midweek. Expect a mostly clear sky overnight with a slight breeze and temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s by tomorrow morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about 80-degree temperatures returning, followed by more wind and cooler weather. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 3/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details. Staples, the working and learning store.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or EPHMedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
Kelly Blue Book Instant Cash Offer is an official offer to buy your car. Enter your vehicle ID info, answer some questions, then get a no-obligation offer to sell or trade it. Then choose a dealer to purchase your car. Schedule a time and drive away with confidence. For all of the its, KBB.com it. This report is sponsored by Kelly Blue Book.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk. From the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk, talking about a lot of things here today, but joined again here this segment by Jack Kerfoot, scientist, energy expert, and author of the book Fueling America: An Insider's Journey, talking more about the energy sector, the situations we're looking at, and getting into right now a little bit more of our local situations, because, Jack, you were talking last segment about how there is very likely to be with the kind of smaller or maybe regional operators. I mean, a lot of focus on the huge national companies right now, of course, but the regional ones or the smaller ones that we're probably going to be seeing active in our area as we are right on the edge, of course, of the Permian Basin, the southeastern New Mexico corridor, all of that. There was already, even before, well, the invasion of Ukraine happened, which is seen as an inciting point for a lot of people. There's already big job fairs that were starting to be planned out in that area that were getting advertised here in town. So it had already been kind of seeing a bit of a ramp up because of that oil price change that we're seeing here. So some of the pronouncements that have been made about that, including on this program, have been about a potential boom to the regional economy out of this. I've used the phrase weird a lot because it doesn't necessarily things are going to be all good, all bad, but probably just continually changing in surprising ways. So if you were looking at it kind of regionally like that, would you expect that there, even if people are paying more at the pump, there might be more economic activity, more people, having those, very now going to be in-demand jobs?
I think the answer is yes. We're seeing the higher prices. What people have to realize is when we talk about oil reserves, the key definition of an oil reserve is economics. So when the price of oil goes up, what you're going to actually see is the booked reserves for major companies or small companies actually increase because the actual price is higher, and therefore that cost of oil to extract it, even though the cost may be going up, the price is going up faster. The other factor we have to realize is there are two very different components. There are the liquids, the oils and the condensates, which go to the refinery. And then there's natural gas. We have an incredible distribution system of gas pipelines across the United States. And most of the utilities across the entire country have been shifting from coal to natural gas over the last 15 years. So the primary source of power in electricity is actually right now natural gas, and now it's followed by renewable energy, then coal, and then nuclear from that standpoint. And we're going to see that demand for gas continue to increase. Gas has lower greenhouse gas emissions than coal. It's also cheaper than coal, even though gas prices are going up. We also have to realize the United States is a major exporter of liquefied natural gas. We have 24 liquefied natural gas export terminals on the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico on the West Coast that are exporting liquefied natural gas to countries that are extremely dependent on liquefied natural gas for heating and for power generation. Countries like Japan, South Korea, China, Taiwan, those are big consumers of liquefied natural gas, as is India. It's a growing user of natural gas as well. Lower emissions than, let's say, certainly coal. So from that standpoint, in many countries, such as even France or places like India, have actually gone to natural gas conversion for the vehicles. The vehicles run cooler, the engine runs cooler, and the cost for gas, natural gas, is much cheaper than gasoline or diesel. So a lot of countries are looking at natural gas as a bridge fuel with the high oil prices that we have. And we may see that as well. I remember working at operations, having an operation unit, that we actually converted our field vehicles from gasoline and diesel to compressed natural gas because gas was so low at the time. And the vehicles ran a lower cost, we could reduce our operating costs significantly by making that conversion. So we may see that as well. The conversion is relatively inexpensive. It does require that you put a gas tank, a natural gas compressed tank in the back of your pickup, because it's not going to do very well in the back seat of the car. But it does create an opportunity, particularly for people with pickups and work in the outside, lower fuel prices, and also a lower engine and maintenance cost as well.
Interesting that you mentioned there the natural gas exports that happened, because along with the comparison year over year of gas prices between administrations, particularly a fact that often gets brought up is the whole concept that under the previous administration in Washington, there was that whole net energy exporter situation happening from the U.S., which I think, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, primarily focused on natural gas and not gasoline. So it's a little bit, I mean, it's a technically correct phrase, but the meaning behind it is a little bit deeper than I think most people are truly recognizing.
That's true. And the other factor people have to realize, the United States has a massive refining infrastructure across the United States. So you'll see oils coming in from South America and being imported into the United States, but then being the product, the gasoline and the diesel or propane or butane, being exported to other countries around the world. So there's a massive flow of energy into and out of the United States. We are an exporter of natural gas. We are a net importer of oil. So it depends on the type of fuel. The problem is, again, the consumption of oil we have is so much higher That's really the issue relative to the amount of production that we have right now.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Jack Kerfoot, scientist, energy expert, and author of the book Fueling America and Inside His Journey. You want to find out anything more about him, his expertise, and the book there, jackkerfoot.com, JackKerfoot.com here. So we've talked a lot about the different situations, factors coming into this. But again, I think for a lot of people, it comes down to what they're seeing at the pump and what they can really plan on at this point. So we talked a little bit about what some of the situations might be, but given kind of a rough time frame for as these prices remain high at the moment, fully expect that, yeah, there will be more production coming online, more of these wells, the exploration that may have stalled during the pandemic when there wasn't much demand. I do recall when there was that brief point when it was talked about in the news a lot, that brief negative cost for oil there, because if you could store it, you could basically have it. So that was one situation we saw during the pandemic that I recall. But as we're really looking at kind of a rough timeline, I mean, it's hard to foresage exactly what's going to go on globally at this point. But even just with the ramp up of domestic production that is being widely called for, in your experience, what kind of a time frame does that look like?
Well, I think what we'll see, we have to realize before the pandemic, companies like British Petroleum and JP Morgan, Barclays were forecasting oil, this is before the pandemic, at $100 a barrel by 2030. And they were predicting that based on the fact that demand, even if it plateaus, that what we'll see is limited supply. So they would expect to see increase in the cost of oil. So I think what I would say is we're seeing volatility now, and people are playing this as a commodity. So we will see the peak price of $130 of oil drop back down. But we will see a long, progressive, steady increase in the cost of oil unless the supply or unless the demand drops dramatically. If we start to make the conversion from, let's say, to electric vehicles, then we'll start to see the consumption of oil in the United States become, the demand will drop, and therefore the prices will drop as well. So it's a supply and demand. The long-term demand for oil will continue to increase. The supply is going to be more expensive to extract, and also the supply is also going to steadily diminish. So it's a good time for us to start thinking about conservation of the fuel that we have, or the oil that we have, and to making the next move to electrification and transportation.
Another phrase that I've been seeing crop up that is almost a throwback at this point is the whole phrase peak oil, which has its own phrases and connotations along with it. And I think if anything has been shown, what with, new technologies coming online, the differences here, such as, the oil shale that we see, available in the United States, that fracking is focused on, the tar sands that you're talking about, that there is still probably going to be at some level plenty of supply, just it gets that much more expensive and difficult to deal with. So if the demand's there, supply can certainly work to match it, but it's just that much more intense and to a certain extent undesirable to have anywhere near you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And with the people have poo-poo the concept of peak oil, but really what that's based on is simply the idea. The geologists and companies around the world basically look at this, the production in major basins around the world, in the Middle East, in Africa, in the United States. And what they see is the number of reserves decreasing, or the number of discoveries decreasing, the amount of production continually decreasing. And they simply say, okay, there will be new technology that may be able to extract it, but quite candidly, it's a diminishing return, or a continually declining return. So they make forecasts on when the supply will disappear. And really what they should be talking about is when oil becomes so expensive, it is no longer prudent to use as a fuel for cars and trucks and conventional vehicles. And so we also have to realize that transportation itself, this is just another step in evolution. What people may not realize that in 1910, General Motors was producing electric trucks. And the reason they shifted from electric trucks to combustion engines vehicles is for two reasons. One, battery technology in 1910 wasn't the best. And two, the supply of oil started to become available because the discovery of production of oil in the United States was continuing to grow at a very rapid rate. So there was a tremendous supply of cheap gasoline and diesel available, and the combustion engine vehicle, coupled with availability of gasoline, was better than the electric car. I think now we're seeing with new technology, we're going to see another change back of over 100 years ago, shifting more toward electric vehicles and electrification of transportation. But that's going to take quite some time.
Absolutely, a lot more to talk about there. But again, guest right now has been Jack Kerfoot, scientist, energy expert, and author of the book Fueling America: An Insider's Journey. Again, any information about him, his book, his expertise, jackkerfoot.com, JackKerfoot.com. So, Jack, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about all these situations, what people need to know about it, and what might be forecasted for the near to medium term future here today.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, we got to be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. So stay tuned. We'll also open up those phone lines as we do during this part of the show. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got to get the 915 on there. 915-544-KTSM. Taking the calls, your thoughts, your comments, and all the things we're discussing here. And back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound near Cotton, there's an earlier accident off to the left. I-10 eastbound at Trans Mountain, stalled vehicle. It's a tractor-trailer rig. It's just off right, stay left there. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, you got a 5-minute delay. Heads up for an accident reported Dyer just south of Maxwell at Alps Drive, and Lee Trevino at Rojas, site of an injury accident there. All lanes are back open from that crash, though. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Your happiest spring starts at Lowe's. Right now, Scott's Triple Action Lawn Fertilizer, everyday low price, starts at $29.98. Lowe's, home to any possibility. Selection varies by location while supplies last. Valid 3/10 through 3/16. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months, 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Excludes factory rebate dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Near historically low mortgage rates may not last forever. If you're in the market for a new home or your dream home, go with a lender you can count on. For competitive rates, over 300 loan products, and thousands of loan consultants to help make sure you get the home and the mortgage that you want. Call now to see if you're pre-approved. 866-888-LOAN. 866-888-LOAN. Or go to loandepot.com. Loan Depot, where home means everything. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. And MLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru and host of The Travel Show, and I want to give you a free cruise, courtesy of Morris Columbus Travel, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, and News Radio KTSM AM 690. There's nothing to buy, but you must enter the drawing online no later than March 15th at TravelShowPrize.com. That's TravelShowPrize.com. And join me on The Travel Show every Sunday at 7 p.m.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. Short timing it here with this last segment, got really well into it. Some of our previous ones here do have that phone line open here already if you're wanting to call in, but at this point, we'll have to squeeze it in for next hour here. So the number to call there is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Already had a couple people chiming in the meantime. Here's some interesting thoughts, among other things. Comments going on, James Radcliffe, John Brazelton, Flaco Jimenez, Matt Olson, RJ, and more over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Brazelton saying, yeah, but electric power requires oil, natural gas, nuclear, water, or just a little bit of renewables. I think that renewables there, but electric cars have limited travel and hours to recharge. Yeah, there's definitely... okay, he had definitely a little bit of a bent to him, I'll give it that. But his overall analysis, again, Jack Kerfoot, our guest today, thanks again to him, talking about, sure, it might be possible in the future, but we're a long way off, is a pretty accurate assessment of our current situation anyway. So really, I think that we'll seeing the changes that are going to come along with this, we will definitely be feeling them here regionally in the short to medium term. Whether or not, those kind of more almost generational kind of policy adjustments happen or not will depend on future elections as well. So just to twist the knife there of my contention that voting matters, we got some comments coming up on that as well. So we'll have to get into that more next hour here. We'll get into more of these comments and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso coming up after the top of the hour news and break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, if you're wanting to get on the line here, shout back at me or discuss politely would be ideal, but I don't hold my breath on that. The points made by our guest today, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break. More Talk El Paso. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound near Cotton, there's an earlier accident off to the left. I-10 eastbound at Trans Mountain, stalled vehicle. It's a tractor-trailer rig. It's just off right. Stay left there. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, you got a 5-minute delay. Heads up, an accident reported Dyer just south of Maxwell at Alps Drive, and Lee Trevino at Rojas, site of an injury accident there. All lanes are back open from that crash, though. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Who's the big boy?
You are.
Who's going to take care of us when we retire?
It's going to be you.
You're going to make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
Or if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool. Oh.
Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
Forest animals. Today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
What's up?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think you would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I
News
get all
on the
my
hour
news
and
from
a
you.
half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio
690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook.
Ukraine's president is urging countries to stop trade with Russia. Lisa Taylor has more.
On Twitter, President Zelensky encouraged Ukrainians across the world to contact their local politicians, speak to journalists, or pressure businesses to end relations with Russian markets. He demanded businesses with Russia be stopped so it wouldn't sponsor the killing of Ukrainian children. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A 24-year-old Ukrainian journalist helping cover the Russia invasion is dead after being struck by incoming fire. Oleksandra Kuvshinova was serving as a consultant when she was killed yesterday outside Kyiv alongside cameraman Pierre Zakruski. Fox News journalist Benjamin Hall was injured in the attack and remains hospitalized. The Dow is celebrating a big day as it finished up almost 600 points. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones gained 599 to 33,544. The S&P 500 grew by 89 points to 4262. The Senate is approving a bill locking in daylight saving time as the nation's permanent time. The Senate approved it unanimously in a voice vote, sending the measure to the House. It would end the twice-yearly changes involving standard time and daylight saving time. The Federal Reserve is expected to raise rates to help slow rising prices. With the economy slowing and inflation up, there's new concern among economists like Ernie Goss of Creighton University.
An economy that's in negative growth combined with significant inflationary pressure, we call that stagflation, and there is that possibility.
It would be the first quarter-point increase in the Fed rate since 2018. A new report says Bob Saget's injuries show he may have fallen on a carpeted floor. The release from the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Florida said fractures near his eyes may have been from a fall on something hard that was covered by something soft. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Wholesale inflation keeps shooting up, a key indicator of rising prices. The Producer Price Index jumped 10% on a year-over-year basis for the period that ended in February. As for February's number, it jumped by 0.8%. While that's double what the nation saw in December, it's still below January's number of 1.2%. Spacewalking astronauts are making upgrades to the International Space Station while tensions on Earth continue to rise.
American astronauts are working outside the space station. Kayla Barron and Raja Chari doing prep work ahead of the installation of new solar arrays.
The side pad piston is installed.
And the lower strut and the mid strut are installed.
The work is moving forward with international partners, even as tensions between Russia and the U.S. rise following the invasion of Ukraine. A NASA official said this week the interdependency of space station systems all but guarantees continued cooperation in space. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Roller skating is coming to New York City's Rockefeller Center next month. Lisa G. reports.
In an effort to draw more people to the area, the world-renowned ice skating rink is being transformed for roller skaters. It's the first time since 1940 that a roller skating rink will be on display at the Sunken Plaza. The new rink is set to open April 15th with tickets going for $20 for adults. It appears Rock Center's management is embracing the retro roller skating craze that took off during the pandemic.
An Idaho man known for breaking hundreds of Guinness World Records is cutting down another feat. Recently, David Rush broke the world record for walking while balancing a non-powered lawnmower on his chin. With the power tool resting on his face, Rush walked 3,257 feet. That beats the previous record of 912 feet. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Hey, I got a new idea for our podcast, Ridiculous Crime.
Hit me with it.
A con man gets busted for dining and dashing and becomes an Australian folk hero.
I got one for you. Jimmy Stewart once smuggled a Yeti's finger out of Nepal.
Both of these live up to our ridiculous crime guarantee. Always 99% murder-free.
And 100% ridiculous.
Listen to Ridiculous Crime on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, Why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see say for my students.
We see say for each other.
I see say because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting. A why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. We're joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to comment throughout the program here if you want to. We got RJ, James Radcliffe, John Braselton, Fleck of Jimenez, Matt Olson, and more tuning in, chiming in over there. A lot of commentary, a lot of stuff we'll get into here when it comes to, I think, in relation to our guest here today, talking about the oil and gas industry, some of the issues we're looking at. RJ saying, would be nice if Plan A was ready to roll out. Windmill solar panels and unicorns aren't cutting it, clarifying, I think it was a typo, but he's rolling with it, calling it und unicorn, say it with a German accent there. James Radcliffe going a little bit further into it, saying it's not supply and demand dependent because demand hasn't changed much within the year. It's purely political and control. I mean, not too far off what our guest was saying there, even if taking it maybe a step further, talking about there are more people, entities out there, both public and private, looking at this less as the resource and more as a commodity lately. I mean, we've seen the loop-de-loops that have happened in the stock market, and even just on the price of a barrel of oil as it is, hovering back down around $100 now. Dollars a barrel at last check anyway. May have changed since, it probably has, but we're looking at a lot of variations. I mean, speculation, things like that. It's unsettled, to be sure. So maybe not quite to the extent you're talking about, but definitely a lot of changes and nice little bit of instability we're going to be living through. But what else is new? Anyway, we got those phone calls if you want to chime in that way. 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Before heading to the lines here, two things I want to mention real quick. A, if you haven't already entered, today is the last day to do so for the Getaway Guru, Larry Gelwicks, who we've had previously on the show, and you can hear Sundays here on News Radio 690 KTSM with his show. They got that last chance to enter over at travelshowprize.com. That's travelshowprize.com to win a cruise for two on Royal Caribbean. Today is the last day there. And then I just want to mention, because I teased it in our announcement post, that possibility of this time, the way that we are living right now, you know, ever since the whole spring ahead, maybe being one of the last times that we would have to do that. I mean, no one has ever really been able to explain that well, why we do this whole time change thing, the spring ahead, the fall back. I mean, it feels like so much rearranging of the deck chairs kind of situation too. Maybe that's an unfortunate pun in relation to the cruise we were just talking about. But seriously, like it's not really changing anything. The vaguest thing I've heard is, well, it helps the farmers, but to my understanding, from any farmer I've talked to, they're going to do the things they need to whenever they need to, regardless of what the clock says, tending to be earlier. So sure, I mean, there were some vague things about, fuel costs, but in the modern day and age, having more daylight in the afternoon, the late afternoons into the evenings actually makes the most sense here. So if we're going to stay in this way, the way we are arranged during the day makes sense. So that having passed that unanimous vote in the Senate, I mean, find me something else lately that has passed unanimous consent in the United States Senate. That alone is remarkable. And the fact that it could substantially change our lives. Now, it would not take place immediately. We're looking at 2023 it coming into place. So we're not done with it yet, even if this does pass and of going through the House and making it to President Biden's desk. But I am still encouraged by the possibility of us, getting rid of standard time, essentially, and always sticking with this Daylight savings time. I mean, I know the whole losing the hour of sleep, we'll get over it eventually, but it's annoying in the meantime. So we'll get to more of those calls now. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make a few comments today. First, I want to comment on O'Rourke calling the governor a thug.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would, rather than to hear all these character assassinations, I would like to hear his stance on border policy, on girls' sports, on CRT in our schools. And I'd like for him to explain his platform on populism. I mean, we're the oppressors and his supporters are victims. I don't follow that. It'd be nice to hear how it is that they're being victimized by the elites, and he is an elite. But that's what he said. His platform is on populism, besides legalizing marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
But regarding the Border Patrol and his stance on it, I mean, our borders and his stance on it. Fiscal year 22 to date, encounters have been 967,000. That's 193,000 per month. Oh, that's wrong.
I think you got them flipped over there
wrong,
because we're on track.
So
We're already like
last year-
14% over last year already in the same kind of time frame. Yeah.
Yes. So in view of that, and I'm sure everybody's heard, and I'm thinking that the Biden administration is preparing for the fact that we're going to exceed not 2 million in fiscal year 22. They entered into a short-term contract with, I think the name of the company is Endeavor. It's a 6-month contract for $90 million to provide rooms, they call them beds, 1,239 beds for illegal immigrant families, to put them in rooms. And El Paso is going to be one of the areas where they're going to put them, Phoenix and Chandler, and I don't know what other cities. But that's $90 million in 6 months. That's $15 million a month we're spending. That's $150,000 per room. Or if you want to do it by bed, that's $72,630. I have the figures. I worked them out per bed. And the purpose of this contract is to shelter Central American immigrants. So my question is, well, what are they going to do with the others that aren't from Central America? Because they were specific in this contract. And then after that, and I'm sure this is all in preparation for 2022. We hear that there's 70,000 illegal immigrants on their way to the United States through what's called an ANT operation. I think we've talked about that on your show before.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be traveling through Mexico to different parts of Mexico, different cities. So it won't look like we're being swarmed because they think Americans are stupid and we don't know what's happening. So in conjunction with all this, Walensky, I'm sure everybody's heard, that they partially broke up, or if you want to call it that, dismantled, should I say, Title 42 regarding, as it refers to unaccompanied minor children. And the reason she said that they are now not subject to Title 42 is because they pose no serious transmission of COVID-19 into the U.S. Think about the hypocrisy. The children coming in who have not been tested, have not been vaccinated, do not transmit COVID-19. Well, that's big news for every American, that we should, stand up and holler. Why are our children then still required in some areas to wear masks to school? And the CDC doesn't, rescind that. And that's pretty. I don't know. That's pretty telling about where our country's going to. And I could get into the fentanyl, which is another thing.
Well, yeah.
But these are things that would be nice to hear O'Rourke explain. How is it that all these changes are suddenly coming upon us, and operations? How does he feel about that? Explain it to El Paso rather than to be out there and being rude to a governor who's tried to do his best for the state of Texas and has done a good job in Texas and is doing everything he can to secure our borders. We need to remember that O'Rourke wanted to tear down that wall.
Yep. And
why hasn't O'Rourke heard what's happening in Colorado or Washington or Oregon on marijuana laced with fentanyl. I mean, I understand why he's politicking in the Dallas area and the Houston area where it's heavily Democrat and they have huge numbers. But, the rest of the state still exists. And we here in El Paso need to hear from him. That's my opinion on O'Rourke.
Oh, I could absolutely agree with you there, because hearing from politicians' actual policies is important. Just checking over on his website to see, it's about what he's had previously on his border and immigration issues. Kind of half of the statement he has there amongst his dozen or so issues that he has elaboration on is half of decrying Abbott's policy. This bolded emphasis his here. Greg Abbott has created chaos and confusion at the border, quoting from his site. And then his actual policy positions, at least written out here. He's made other statements, but is saying that as governor, I will never use border communities or law enforcement as a political prop. Work to have a legal, orderly system of immigration and uphold our country's asylum laws, and pursue long-lasting solutions to benefit the Texas economy, encourage more job creation, and guarantee the security we should expect at our national border. So more, again, not exactly addressing what you're asking for there. And I do think that, there was that whole tear down even this wall in El Paso, and I think he got the resounding at best meh and the worst what the hell are you talking about kind of response from our local area on that particular point. But when you get into, the border security issues, actually Todd Bensman, previous guest on the show and a fellow with the Center for Immigration Studies, has an article out of this week. Beware Mexico to unleash a massive wave of 70,000 migrants toward U.S. border in unnoticeable ant operation. And just to one other point there I want to get to here on Title 42, it definitely hasn't been as absolute as was originally described, because even earlier, even last year, it was that there was the kind of malleable nature when it came to the unaccompanied minors. It was largely being applied to single adults or family units, but when it came to the unaccompanied children, and actually from my quick Google research here, looking like there was a previous contract actually for a very similar sounding group, Family Endeavors, a Texas-based nonprofit, according to Axios here, that had a $530 million contract. This is this report dated April, so based a little under a year ago, to house the unaccompanied migrant children here. I mean, I've had the contention here for a minute that the federal government is not good at being in the business of housing large amounts of people for an undefined amount of time. I mean, administration over administration, there have been outcries of what the hell is going on here and the issues coming along with it, and it just keeps not working out.
Well, you know what? I would like to hear his definition of orderly and his definition of security, because tearing down the wall is not going to give us anything orderly, and it's not going to provide security.
Yeah, I think, again, whether or not he's actually still harboring that sentiment is debatable. But, I mean, even just locally, there wasn't many people saying, he's absolutely right. A lot of people, even across the political spectrum, were thinking like, this might not be it, dude. So we saw that point at least fall off pretty quickly. And it's not any of the real public statements being made. I think it's kind of more shifted to the militarization of the border in opposition to that and wanting to facilitate trade. That's, I think, what he's talking about with the economic language here, with some of the vague assurances of security coming along with it. But I mean, if you really want to have security with it, it's got to be a little bit more stringent to talk about it. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I got to be perfectly honest. But if you're not espousing as much on all aspects of it, you're going to be falling short in at least some areas, by my opinion.
And I think his positions, are like the wind. You never know which way it's going to be.
Well, we've seen more than a little bit of that. Well, we'll see how the campaign trails continues on. I mean, the last statements, coming out, the thug remarks towards Governor Greg Abbott, which I guess it's a base galvanizing thing. That's the best I can think of it, because, anyone else finding themselves undecided or on the other side of the aisle, not exactly going to be Beto O'Rourke is right. I think he's right on that. I doubt there's going to be much of that for people who don't already agree with him.
Right. So,
we'll see.
Luck to him. I hope he loses, and he loses big time.
I'm sure we'll have a lot more discussion about that and some sharing your opinions. But even if you don't, we'll take more calls here. So thank you for the point in the call, Robert. Do appreciate it here. We are over. Absolutely. We are overdue for that next break right now. Keep getting into deep dives on issues here, but we got a lot more time to go here. Do have those phone lines open. So if you're wanting to call in, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, you got stop-and-go traffic with 5-minute delays. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Lee Trevino, an accident just reported there. I-10 eastbound before you get to Executive Center Boulevard, watch for a stalled vehicle off right. It's blocking the right shoulder. And an accident reported Dyer southbound at Elps Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
There's no part of our bodies that put in more work than our feet. And with all that work, your feet can start to ache. But luckily, there's relief for our overworked feet. Skechers Arch Fit footwear for men and women. Skechers teamed up with podiatrists to design a shoe that provides total foot and arch support for all-day comfort. They used 20 years of data and over 120,000 unweighted foot scans to create a podiatrist-certified insole that distributes support across the arch no matter what foot type you have. And with all that support comes extreme comfort. Skechers are the fit and comfort specialists, and Arch Fit shoes from Skechers provide expert comfort whether walking or just standing. They're so comfortable, they're not just for people with tired, achy feet. Everybody can enjoy just how amazing they feel. Plus, many are machine washable. So even though you'll be wearing them all day, every day, you can easily keep them looking new. So give yourself some soothing comfort and support with podiatrist-certified Skechers Arch Fit footwear. Your overworked feet will thank you. See all the styles of Arch Fit footwear for men and women at Skechers.com, the Skechers store near you, or wherever stylish shoes are sold.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk here. A lot of conversation going on, a lot of issues swirling in around the area. One comment that came in off here, Paul passed along here some of the historical perspective of the whole Ukraine conflict. Wanted to pass that along here, or you wanted to, and want to respond to it here briefly before we get back to those phone lines, that yes, there actually was, believe it or not, Russian colonization efforts, I guess you could say, all the way into like the San Francisco Bay Area. So if Vladimir Putin is really serious about trying to rebuild the Soviet Empire or even further back, the Russian Empire as it truly was, again, he is specifically on record as, he played it off as a joke later on, but asking a small child, where do the borders of Russia end? It was actually during like a, children's geography competition. And it says, where does it end in the east? And the child said, the Bering Sea and, Kamchatka and those areas. And Putin very specifically looking to the camera said, no, the borders of Russia never end. And then after adulation from the crowd saying, I'm joking, of course, but I, again, don't trust that gentleman as far as I could throw him. If I could ever even lay a finger on him, doubt that would ever happen. But yeah, I don't really believe the last part of that statement of just joking. Think he would absolutely do it if he thought he could get away with it. So that's why we pay attention to some of these other things, because, yeah, all the way into Northern California, right and butted to Spanish colonial holdings and then later on Mexican holdings before it became what we now know as the United States. But, yeah, the history of the region could come into question as if they keep using that kind of a junk and that pseudo-political argument. Anyway, that's a whole other kettle of fish. We'll absolutely get more to it here. Some of the comments coming in on the border issues, a lot going on here. Lorenzo Colon saying boarding out his prices he was paying at AutoZone for his Toyota 4-cylinder. Bought motor oil $39.99, oil filter $5.99, air filter for $15.99. Air filter probably a very smart choice, given that we are definitely in those spring storms and winds blowing here. John Browselton about wanting more concertina wire at the border here, that Abbott had obtained border wall materials from the federal government very cheaply, free actually, as part of the whole giving materials to states from federal reserves kind of thing. But that has been cut off. I'm not sure if it's actually been cut off so much as there wasn't actually that much requested, because sure, there was some few $1 million of materials that were requisitioned essentially by the state from the federal. Came out of an amount of like $20 million left over in Arizona. So Arizona, I think, actually snagged some of that themselves here. But RJ going on over on Facebook saying, Beto would destroy Texas sovereignty, overwhelm all who deal with illegal immigration, human trafficking, and pedophile rings. Beto would be an economic boon to sex slavery, bongs, crack pipes, and windmills. So dim view happening on some of these issues. But we have a long campaign trail, some 200-odd days before we get there. And I'm sure a lot more of these kind of statements will be coming up here, no doubt. James Radcliffe announcing that Russia, yes, has announced sanctions against Biden and his administration. That coming out there, absolutely, them hitting back at that. Not surprised that that has happened, but whether that's will have the same kind of impacts that sanctions have gone the other way having, very debatable in my mind. But let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, the number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Do we have Harry on the east side here with us right now? Harry, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew, you're taking on a big load today. I'm doing a great job. That lady that called, really impressed with her comments, but I got some lighter comments. I just still think we should provide a little bit of love for Beto and Raul and myself, or we're going to end up down in Pancho Villa's stash house down there before all this is over.
I mean, I respect it as a statewide run. I mean, there's never been an El Pasoan elected to statewide office. There was at least one El Pasoan in my historical study of these things that held a statewide office, but never statewide elected. I think one ended up being the Speaker of the House back in the day, but otherwise never one elected to state office. So I find that proposition interesting, even if the political arrangements that would have to come along with it in this situation are, well, more than open for debate in my mind. Yeah.
Well, you know, it takes all kinds. I just want to give you a definition of an expert. An expert, Andrew, is someone that owns a briefcase and is more than 25 miles from home.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been my definition of an expert. Okay. I just want to make a few comments on oil. I'm a little bit more familiar with oil.
Okay.
I've got a family working in oil. Let me just go over a few things here that I'm sure the good folks are already aware of. To begin with, oil is pumped out of the ground. It's turned into gasoline after being refined. It's delivered to service stations, i.e. Circle K, 7-Eleven, speedways locally, and otherwise all over the world. Over half the cost of a gallon of gasoline is taxed by state and our federal government. And then you've got to consider the delivery trucks, the drivers, the stations that hold the petrol. Everybody's got to get in on it and get paid. Now, here's something that an oil company, and I can speak in reference to ExxonMobil, if they're making $70 for a barrel of oil, they are just breaking even, Andrew. They're getting enough income to pay all the bills, all the folks, all the entities that are required that have their hands up. And here's something that a lot of people don't know. The ExxonMobil building over there in Houston, they have one floor, Andrew, one floor of nothing but complete lawyers, all lawyers. And what they're doing is they spend 90% of their time fighting off the federal government that is constantly sues ExxonMobil and I'm sure other oil companies, okay? The government goes to where the money's at. Let's not kid ourselves. And that's why you always hear that particularly the oil companies are under constant scrutiny of being sued.
Yeah.
And another thing, refining. The average person has no cost of what it costs to build a refinery. That's why there's so few of them. That's why it's more money than we can even comprehend as far as building a refinery.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to pass those along. We like to blame the oil companies for everything, the price of a gallon of gasoline, but I'm telling you, there's a lot more to it.
Oh, no, absolutely would agree with you. That, frankly, I'd be surprised if it was only one whole floor of lawyers as opposed to most of the floors of lawyers in the Exxon building that you're talking about there. But, okay, to put it in perspective, the cost of a refinery here, local example, actually perfectly illustrates this in my mind. It was several years ago, pre-pandemic, so lifetime ago, it kind of feels like, that there was an increase in the estimation of the property taxes of the local refinery. Then technically it was whatever it was before it was Marathon, the one that is now the Marathon refinery that we have here in the city of El Paso. Its estimated taxes were challenged them, essentially saying that, the increase in taxes, we dispute this. We do not believe that our property values have increased by this amount. And they won the case because even as everyone has dealt with that owns property here in town, and even those that haven't owned property, if you rent and live in town, you have probably felt that in some way or another as rents have gone up, etc. But the actual ability to fight that is actually pretty limited on the part of the Central Appraisal District, just kind of as a side note. But point is that the now Marathon refining facility they disputed it and they won. And the impact of that saw severe shortages in budgets then within all of the taxing entities that are downstream of that. So the city, the county, and even the school district that covers that one. I believe it's EPISD, but I might be mistaken, so don't quote me on that. Point is that they had to significantly adjust it because that amount of money, just like a percentage change in the amount of taxation coming out of that, resulted in millions of dollars for local entities and created some serious budget shortfalls. So that's kind of the local microcosm example of how expensive these things are and why there hasn't been a major one. There has been one that has been brought on board. We talked about that in the 2010s, but previous to that, 1970s, the last time one was built up here. So it will dispute you slightly on the amount of taxes put on here. According to the Texas Comptroller, anyway, there's a 20-cent Texas gasoline and diesel fuel tax, and then a 18.4 cent on gasoline and 24.4 cent on diesel fuel tax from the federal government. I am sure there are more costs imposed along the way, certainly, because if you want to find a heavily regulated industry, oil and gas would certainly be one of the first ones I look at here. But yeah, there's a lot to get into there, but I have no doubt that's the way the system is. Significant costs put in there, absolutely. So thank you for the point and the call. Let's get to another quick one here before we hit that next break. We'll squeeze in one more. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. You know what affects El Paso is poor air quality. And Texas is the second largest polluter in the United States of America. Isn't that interesting? The oil oligarchs are immensely powerful in Texas, along with the refiners. Now, there's a whole corridor that they call Cancer Corridor. Poor people living around at these refineries. Years ago, I drove to Austin with a bunch of El Pasoans to attend a public meeting of the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality and ASARCO's application to get this air quality permit renewed. By the way, that Texas Commission for Environmental Quality, that's an oxymoron. Their name, really, it really, really is. It's a joke. It's a joke. So all of El Paso's political leaders at the time were against ASARCO having its air quality permit renewed. And that included the mayor, the county judge, the state reps, our state senator, all were against it, and a bunch of local organizations were against it. So we went up there, a bunch of us, hundreds of us, to attend this meeting, and I'll guarantee you that these guys and gals who sit on that commission are connected to the industry. They're business people or ex-business people, and they're all Republicans. They're all Republicans, and in spite of the fact that the entire community was against it, as represented by its leaders, and the people who win it there. They still got their permit.
Now, was this in the era before there was the shutdown, or are we talking about when they were trying to do that kind of vague renew the smelter effort or reforge? There was some kind of semi-catchy slogan that went along with it. Was that era, or was it before they had the layoffs and the shutdown? When was this?
No, it was that era that they were trying to get going again. They had shut down before.
Gotcha. Okay.
And now they wanted to get going up again, up and running again. And to have that there in the middle of the city, the university there, downtown there, it is insane. It was totally insane, but they don't care, And later on, I talked to a lady who said she had connections with the owners at the time, which were, I think it was Carlos Slim's company. I can't remember. In any case, the owners at the time, she said, you know what? They never intended to reopen the refinery. Copper was being smelted for a whole lot less in Latin America than it would have been here in El Paso without all these, these so-called regulations to protect the public's air. But she said they just did it because just in case they could sell it. They would have the quality, air quality permit, and somebody could, buy it and take it from there. But that ASARCO really wasn't interested in doing it. So it just shows the power of money, and especially in Texas, and Abbott is completely a creature of Texas's plutocrats and oil energy oligarchs. You couldn't get any worse. He doesn't care about the average person like me, whose wife works in the school system, and I could have gotten COVID because they didn't test anybody. They didn't ask anybody if they had been tested. They didn't, offer vaccines. They didn't even make them wear masks all that much. That is a total disregard for the public safety and kids. What a joke that guy is. Yay, Beto. He's not my favorite guy, but he's better than Abbott.
Again, I think it'll be an interesting campaign trail here, but I was actually able to go through the ASARCO facilities right after that period you're talking about here, but we are well overdue a break for now. So thank you for the point in the call. We got to take this next break, otherwise we're not going to make it through the end of the show here. So coming out of this break, we will get to more of those calls in the line again. If you're wanting to call in and get more thoughts on that call there as well, don't worry. But in the meantime, if you want to call in, the number to do so there is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with SK Fox 14 News Update. Mexico has deported the alleged leader of a bloodthirsty gang of border hitmen 1 day after his arrest caused retaliatory shooting and burning that closed some U.S. border crossings. A Mexican official who's not authorized to be quoted by name said Juan Gerardo Trevino had been handed over to U.S. officials in a controlled deportation, suggesting Trevino holds dual U.S. citizenship, which is not uncommon along the border. Had he only Mexican citizenship, he would have been subject to a lengthy extradition process. After his arrest Sunday, members of his gang shot up the border city of Nuevo Laredo. And Saturday Night Live starring comedian Pete Davidson is the latest celebrity who's scheduled to fly to the edge of space. He's scheduled to launch next Wednesday, March 23rd, from billionaire Jeff Bezos' spaceport on the Corn Ranch in the West Texas desert, located about 100 miles east of here. Some people may know Davidson better as Kim Kardashian's current boyfriend. I'm Erica Castillo with SK Fox 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for stop-and-go traffic on the 10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, 5-minute delays. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Lee Trevino, a crash there. On the Purple Heart Memorial portion of Loop 375, north of Montana Avenue, there's a crash. Traffic backed up to the Liberty Expressway. I-10 eastbound before Executive Center Boulevard, stalled vehicle off to the right. And transbound westbound approaching Kenworthy, an injury accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
They expect calmer conditions this evening with another pattern change by midweek. Expect a mostly clear sky overnight with a slight breeze and temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s by tomorrow morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about 80-degree temperatures returning, followed by more wind and cooler weather. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Rocket Mortgage. When you buy a home with Rocket Mortgage, you'll have a team of experts to help you every step of the way. Forget unwanted surprises and unanswered questions. That's not how they work. You'll feel informed and confident at every turn. When you're ready to buy or refinance, Rocket can.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Rob, age 22.
I got COVID in September of 2020, and a few weeks later, I started to have long-term problems. I used to run 5 to 6 miles a day. Now, when I walk up a flight of stairs, I'm gasping for air. It feels like my brain is clouded and I can't think straight.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
MassMutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. MassMutual. Live.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Staples has the innovative tech and tools you need to take on the future of work, all at great prices. Right now, save up to $230 on select PCs. In-store only offer ends 3/19, limit 2. Explore what's new for your business at Staples, the working and learning store. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here over on Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show here. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. We've been getting into a lot of deep conversations here, so we'll smooth things along here a little bit. Get to some calls. A couple of comments I want to get to here. Lorenzo Colon asking me, when do you think that we'll start seeing some type of recovery of for the country? Depends on what you're talking about more specifically. If you listen to the White House, they are saying that we've seen a great recovery so far, but it feels a little bit more like bungee jumping. Like we saw a precipitous fall, and we've kind of bounced back, but not quite all the way. I think the best we can really foresage right now is locally. We're seeing quite the consumer demand, and as long as some currents that we are seeing and talking about on this program, more investment in the area, more people wanting to work here, have people work here, have things made here, as long as that can continue, which I think will happen in no small part due to some of these elected officials and the people that they appoint, among other things, still keeping the current going. As long as they don't basically strangle the golden goose, I think we'll do better locally. Nationally, your guess is as good as mine, to be perfectly honest, because we are seeing way too many currents, way too many whims happening with it. We got the potential for the Federal Reserve to raise those interest rates, that 0.25% or maybe more. But, I mean, there's a whole lot of moving parts with all of that here. So we're going to keep focusing locally as best we can. So I think we will continue to improve here locally as long as it doesn't get too screwed up here. Yeah, interesting questions coming in about air quality here as well. Jim Radcliffe, amongst other things, saying, actually agree with Raul about the TCEQ. I mean, there's a lot to get into there as well. Jim Radcliffe also mentioning that, yes, I did go through the Asarco areas pre-demolition as part of the documentary series that Jackson Polk, my father, did produce. You can see those for free now. We put them all up online over at youtube.com/El Paso History TV. So if you want to find that for yourself, more than welcome to there, because they got them all up there now, and see what was being talked about there. If you want to see what it was like, there was no chance of Asarco turning back on, by the way, because it wasn't just a controlled shutdown ready to start back up later. It was a literally people just walked off the line. There was still ore on the belts, among other things, having sat there for better part of 10 years at that point. Gloves that had just been laid down, someone took them off. Hammers, like, giant sledgehammers just kind of leaned up against the wall as if someone was going to come back to it the next day, but it never happened. So that facility, and then the belts had sagged, stuff was broken, there was, among other things, some of the furnaces that had never stopped working before that shutdown. What it would have taken to turn those back on would have been in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars overall. So they may have been talking a big game, but there was, from my non-professional analysis, because I'm not an expert in these things, but having walked through theirs, there was no way in hell they were just going to turn that back. Imagine leaving a car, something frankly less mechanically complex than that whole operation, to sit for like 10 years without any preservation work done on it, and you'll have a kind of similar idea of what it might have taken, but to the nth degree for ASARCO here. But let's try to get to some of these calls before we end up here, before the end of the show. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew, and good afternoon.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
Yes, regarding the gas prices and the increase in fuel costs. Well, recently it was stated on the news that the Keystone Pipeline would have been operational by now and provided some sort of relief.
Okay, so there's two things to go into there. One, the Keystone Pipeline is in operation. The Keystone Pipeline XL was going to be an extension of that, and that was about 8% complete. And so I'm dubious on that being accurate there, because to my understanding, it was still taking a couple more years, even if it had gone completely apace to this point, to have gotten there. So I'm not going to agree with that one there.
Well, the point is the XL was shut down.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I think by now we would have had somewhat, supply from that. But anyway, not to argue the point.
Fair enough.
Anyway, one of the things Raul brought up about Texas being one of the largest polluters, does he ever take into account that pollution knows no boundary? We live Texas has the largest border with Mexico.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the phrase the Juarez flu that I grew up with around here, and the idea that the crud can certainly cross international boundaries, still very much applies in my mind.
Yes, I agree. Also, I wanted to mention, did you see that Quinnipiac poll? I believe that's how you pronounce it, concerning if Russia were to invade the U.S., which members of which party would stand and fight?
Yeah, John Brazelton brought that up in the first segment there, that 55% nationally, or at least of the survey participants, said they would stay and fight. 38% said they would flee. And I guess I'm disappointed, but not terrifically surprised.
Well, the majority of people that would stay and fight turned out to be Republicans.
Yeah, there was I think about 68%, and then like the mid to low 40s of Democrats responding to the poll indicated they would do that, which also doesn't just totally surprise me. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Well, anyway, I just wanted to make one final point, one final comment, I should say. Reference Messiah Frankie and Raul. Like I said, hey, I have no problem debating either of those guys. And as for Messiah Frankie, hey, as long as the debate can go on, as long as the tone is civil. I don't like to engage in ad hominem attacks or use your program as a forum for such. But anyway, my point to Frankie is, hey, Frankie, chill out. Go take a cruise in your Edsel.
Fair enough here. All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. We're going to squeeze in a couple more calls here. We can. Short time here towards the end of the program here. James Radcliffe among John Brazelton making the point about Juarez, Dove having some bad air quality, and that's why we have a little bit of inspections in here. James Radcliffe asking, is El Paso going to impose us with the Pfizer's fourth COVID vaccine? Seen some rumbling about that nationally. Anyway, I'll be very surprised if that ends up coming down locally with a requirement, or, the way local has seemed to follow the national on what the definition of fully vaccinated is. So if that does come down in that way, it might be then required, even though there has been the removal of mask requirements at most public facilities, depending on a county side anyway, but we'll get more into that. Squeeze in a couple more calls here. We have Mario on the east side. Mario, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. A couple of points here. I'm not against electric cars.
Sure.
I think that if they can build electric cars, and but I like to see for the Democrats not to eliminate fossil fuels altogether. We live in a country where we have the freedom to choose.
Sure.
And capitalist countries, where people can, they want to get that or they want to get this. Now, speaking about electric cars, we're talking the average is $60,000. I don't know how a lot of people can afford it. And then, of course, to build your little grid at the house to plug in your car. And then, of course, the electricity will be really, really high. But anyway, back in the time when the candidates for Democrats were running for president,
Mhm.
there was a lot of climate change proponents, that
Sure.
they just took all kinds of, let's say, the Hurricane Dorian in the
Mhm.
eastern seaboard, and they were blaming climate change for this. Now, this is a natural disaster that is really out of our hands. Now, this proposal was, it has unintended consequences. For instance,
Oh, yeah.
Bernie Sanders, he said with his mouth, eliminate global warming, we must eliminate pregnancies, meaning eliminate more people. You have to curb population in the United States and around the world. That's why the United States keeps funding abortion in Mexico. We need less people, according to him. Now, birth control, okay, he said that's the strongest, the way we can curb, pregnancies. Now, Kamala Harris agreed with that. Now, here's another point that needs to be made. You got to break up with the beef. No more meat. Eventually, you got to get rid of the cows. The dietary guidelines has to be changed. They're going to restrict you what to eat. So basically, they are going to try to control your life.
Mhm.
Windmills. They want to put windmills on the seaboard. Well, that prevents fishermen from fishing. It limits the seafood. They haven't thought about that, huh? Government will control your life. Once again, they target meat and plastic straws. Cory Booker, with a very low IQ, said that, he says that really Republicans are vilifying their climate denial. I don't deny climate change. I think I spoke to you before on this.
Sounds about right.
Warming trend that is actually helping our environment because we have more food than ever before because of the favorable climate. Now, once again, I am not against electric cars. What I am against is that people want to eliminate fossil fuels. Keep in mind this, 50,000 products are made from petroleum, okay? If you eliminate petroleum, where are we going to get all these products? Number one. Number two, to build this electric grid, you need lots and lots of fossil fuels. And one more point that I need to make here. Our air and our streams are cleaner than ever before. Listen to me, Andrew. If we put $2 billion, okay, just $2 billion, not trillions, we can clean our environment better, and we can even send money to Africa where they don't have clean streams for them to drink. Now, one more thing, please, if you allow me.
Real briefly,
China
if you can.
and India are building coal plants every week. They're the biggest polluters. So really, we're going to become America poor, but they're going to get richer because they're going to continue with the coals.
I mean, there's a lot of impacts. I mean, the whole third world impact is huge here, but you know what? We got to take that break right now. We are well overdue. So I do thank you for the point in the call. We'll squeeze it with one more comment here if we can coming out of this break here. But that whole, population control aspect that comes with it is one of the more disturbing ones here because it misses the whole point. But we'll get into that. Got to get this last break in and then close out the show. So back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for stop-and-go traffic on the I-10 southbound with 5-minute delays from Wrestler to Thorne. On Loop 375, the Purple Heart Memorial portion in the North Valley. A crash there has got a backup to Liberty Expressway. Montwood Drive at Joe Battle, an accident reported there. You could take Pebble Hills as an alternate. Loop 375 southbound at Alameda, stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder there. And an accident reported Sunland Park Drive west of Donovan.
This report is sponsored by Rocket Mortgage. When you buy a home with Rocket Mortgage, you'll have a team of experts to help you every step of the way. Forget unwanted surprises and unanswered questions. That's not how they work. You'll feel informed and confident at every turn. When you're ready to buy or refinance, Rocket can.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now
and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months, 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso, El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate at dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
This is important news. If you have unfiled tax returns, the IRS is shifting gears and ramping up investigations on non-filers this year. If you failed to file your tax returns for a year or more, or you owe back taxes, now's the time to call Optima Tax Relief before the IRS finds you. Optima is America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm, specialized in helping individuals, families, and businesses get right with the IRS. They're experts in the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, a powerful new program that can make resolving tax issues easier. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, Optima's award-winning team has helped thousands of people protect their paychecks, bank accounts, homes, and businesses by putting their tax problems to rest, resolving over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-337-4548. That's 800-337-4548. 800-337-4548.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. We are about out of time here for this program, so I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. A couple of last-minute things here that were brought up to that last caller about population control is just so bunk to me. I mean, the Guardian.co.uk, the richest 10% were responsible for 49% of emissions against 7% produced by the poorest half of the world's population by 2015 here. So if you're saying that, there's too many people, that is not how this works, among other things. Some other comments that came in off air, including about the issues about recycling batteries. How is that not going to be worse? You look at some areas where that is being mined in some of the poorest countries, the rare earth metals that go into this and minerals. There are some horrific situations. They look like wastelands. So if it's not, if we're just exporting where the economic and environmental devastation is happening, another serious issue that comes along with it. Lorenzo Colon asking about that, referring to, I think, the WIP project out there by Carlsbad Caverns. That's for nuclear waste, as far as I'm aware, because the batteries, people just dump them in the ocean more than anything here. So there's a lot more to get into on this, and we certainly will, because there's more to talk to every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Do appreciate everyone who did tune in, calling, comment in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. If you want to get in those pound 250 calls, ran out of time here for today, but we'll get to those tomorrow. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso tomorrow here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for stop-and-go traffic on the I-10 southbound with 5-minute delays from Wrestler to Thorne. On Loop 375, the Purple Heart Memorial portion in the North Valley. A crash there has got a backup to Liberty Expressway. Montwood Drive at Joe Battle, an accident reported there. You can take Pebble Hills as an alternate. Loop 375 southbound at Alameda, stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder there. And an accident reported Sunland Park Drive west of Donovan.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply. and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.